Back on episode 16, I had Cody O'Connor on as a guest. He is a friend of mine that I'm helping walk across the country from New York to LA. Now, if you haven't seen the episode, at the age of 14, Cody was diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma cancer, ultimately lost his right fibula. They had to completely restructure his ankle. He was told he would never walk normally again. So to prove the doctors wrong, Cody decided that he wanted to walk across this country from New York to LA. Now, Cody had shared some interesting stories or facts about how cancer can tear apart a family. His family personally went bankrupt. It was a major contributing factor to the divorce of his parents. And so in this walk across the country, Cody decided that he wanted to help families overcome the disease of cancer, not just medically per se, but socially, mentally, spiritually, and all these other aspects of life that cancer can affect. And so we have a chance to catch up with Cody today. He's started in New York on June 17th. He's now midway through Texas, and he gives us some insight on what it's like to actually walk across the country, how generous some of the people are, what it's like eating out of his trunk and sleeping in the car at times. Not necessarily the life of luxury.
Quite frankly, it's kind of unusual.
It's quite Franklin.
Got it. Quite Franklin.
But Cody started walking on June 16th?
17th.
Yep. And you started in Times Square?
Times Square.
New York. And he is walking from Times Square, raising money for cancer causes and moving all the way through the United States. I met up with him in Kansas City. And now where did you leave off?
Austin, Texas.
Austin, Texas.
We've almost walked a rectangle.
Yeah. So he came home for Christmas, and then he began to head back out for the walk. And on the way going back out to the walk, you get COVID.
Yeah.
And you have to return back to home.
Yeah, it's eating me, man.
Because I want to jump in here, and I want to talk about the day that you and I were walking together, because I was shocked. I said to you, is this a normal pace that you walk?
Yeah.
And it was, I don't know, we were July, August, whatever. It was one of the hottest months of the year here in Ohio. And you said, no, I've actually slowed down for you, which is crazy, because the backstory on Cody, for those of you that haven't kept up with the story, is that Cody had cancer at the age of 14. He had, you tell the story. I don't know why I'm telling your story.
Age 14, I had Ewing sarcoma, which is a form of bone cancer and affects roughly 400 children in America year in, year out. And I was told many things, but one of those being that I would never walk normally again in my life. And so we kind of set out, call me stubborn or just call me a man of faith. I don't know. I felt like this drive or passion was pulling me in some way to make an impact in people's lives. And I know that I work really, really hard. And through Rich's help of helping me actually recondition my ankle strength, we were able to get me to a place where I walk faster than most human beings.
I might take a little bit of the credit out of the gate, but I don't want to take a ton of credit, because I helped you do some training. But since then, I've kind of like the occasional phone call here and there, and it makes it sound like I'm doing way more than I am. Perhaps, I don't know. But I don't know. That's just me feeling guilty because you're out there walking every day. But Cody and I went walking together one day, and it was a hot day, and we were walking fast. And I looked at him and I said, man, is this the normal pace that you walk? And he says, no, I'm slowing this down for you. So now that you had COVID, maintaining that pace, what is the typical mile per hour pace that you walk?
We're at like 4.5.
For how many hours a day?
We try to pull. So I can't maintain that pace the full day. Usually I'm good with that pace for about 13 to 14 miles. So it really gets a chunk out during the beginning of the day. And then I'll nickel and dime it the rest of the way. So the walk is all about impact rather than speed to completion. So we've put in our schedule efforts to meet with cancer groups, to meet with kids that are fighting cancer themselves, to walk with other survivors, news, media, all that stuff. So we take time to actually just connect with that community versus really just sprinting it all out. So we are approaching a dead spot, in essence, a spot where there's really not much between Austin and El Paso, Texas. So we're approaching a spot where it's going to feel much different because we are able just to put our head down and and kind of plow away.
Let's rewind back, man. You're 14. You're diagnosed with cancer. I don't think just for the people that haven't they maybe they haven't caught up with this or kept up with the story. So at the age of 14, you're diagnosed, and I was actually shocked to hear that you were still playing football for an entire year.
Yeah. So the injury started with football, right? And I was taken off for a sprint, clutched my ankle. Doctor said Achilles tendonitis. So in my mind, mentally, I just continue to push through. Pain is mental, right? Mind is very, very powerful. And so we continued to fight through that. Every sport I went through for every season for about, that year, because it grew for a year. There was at least a block of time where my ankle hurt so bad that I couldn't walk at all. Like it was like I'm shuffling my feet in slides because I can't even tie my shoe type of thing. And it just, at night, it just felt like a growing pain, that the worst one that you've had multiplied by 10. And that was the throbbing and the severe ache just going on around those bones. The surgeon, when he cut into my leg, he gave me the green light to play my last. So I played a soccer game right before I wanted to get my team to state, and he gave me the green light to do that. However, when he cut into my leg, he was like, I don't know what I was thinking, because had that bone broke and punctured the tumor, I would have bled out internally. So yeah, I mean, it was a very competitive mindset, but the ability to block out those, I guess, aches and pains, it took a lot. It really did. But we continued to compete and until the bone popped out.
So ultimately, they end up having to take a bone out of your leg.
We knew that we were going to be going into surgery to obviously remove the tumor. It was a game time decision what was actually going to be taken out. His goal was just to take the middle of my fibula, as that would allow me to function like a normal kid or a normal human, I guess, in theory. So we went under the knife, not knowing, could he save this 1 inch of a fibula? And if he could, then my tendon structure, my ligaments, walking, for instance, running, sports would all be normal. And unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess that's the way that I looked at it. Fortunately, now that's given me the ability to connect with people. So I am missing my full fibula in my right leg, and the stabilizing muscles, all that, like a lot of that was taken out.
That's one of those things when you say, "Oh, they removed the bone in my leg," that you don't really think about the fact that your entire ankle had to be restructured.
Yeah, surgically restructured.
Yeah,
I mean,
all the muscles, tendons,
Right.
ligaments, the way that everything tied in. So when Cody came to me initially, when you came to me and asked me to help you, I was like, "Yeah, this fine. I can help strengthen your ankle." And I was in my mind, overachieving what I thought that you would be able to do with stability. And when I saw you walking your first gait and I saw the size of your ankle and how you have one ankle that's the size of an ankle and then another ankle that's the size of basically a wrist,
Right.
you quickly realize, whoa, okay, we need to take a step back here
Right.
and figure this out. So, we had to step back with that, but moving forward to, them removing the leg or removing the bone from the leg. And now this eventually makes you decide that you want to walk across the country. And you and I did some training together and all that, but we're in the middle of the walk now. What is it that made you decide that you actually, why is it that you are doing this walk? What is it that you want to raise money for, awareness about, and bring attention to?
That stems from what I struggled with going through cancer. My family, my mother and my dad, both filed bankruptcy, went through a divorce. With my mom individually, we wondered where food was coming from.
This is all during the time that you're battling the cancer as a kid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we started a nonprofit called Champions Do Overcome to basically address those needs, as well as address the need of a support system for those that don't have it. Think kind of big brother, big sister, but specifically for pediatric cancer. And so we started all of that, and we were like, well, in the nonprofit world, how do you break through? How do you garner a little bit of trust, or how do you do something that is going to get people behind you? And we were like, well, we got to think of something insane. So we started with a walk just to see if I could do it, honestly, from Westchester to Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And that was about 22-ish miles.
Well, you started with smaller walks prior to that, though.
I mean, Yeah, walking around a lake or something.
Yeah,
but,
gotcha.
But as far as like what was
The first
monumental,
major,
I guess, it was from my hometown down to Cincinnati, and that raised a little bit of money, a few grand, and we made our first news attention, stuff like that. And we were, but I had kids reaching out that were fighting cancer that went to the local school districts. Just, I don't know how they came across my channel of like, I don't know, at the time, 200 followers, but hey, they did. And they told me, they were like, hey man, just seeing you train or wake up to go do this or that is inspiring me to know that I have my whole life ahead of me to achieve whatever dreams I have. And I was like, okay, wait, what can we mold this into something that really touches the nation? And that's where my mind went. I was going to just do Cincinnati to LA until I met you, and you're like, hey man, you gotta start in New York City.
Well, who walks 75% of the way across the nation, right?
Somebody trying to avoid the Appalachian Mountains.
How bad was that coming through the Appalachian Mountains?
Oh, it was horrible, man.
Really?
It was horrible. It was by the time I got back to Doc, who's a chiropractor that we now share, my hips were rotated down and separated. It was probably not too far into Pennsylvania so I burned through New Jersey. Like, it was nothing. Coasted. There's some crazy stuff I'll tell you in a second, New Jersey, but coasted right through. And we went probably a week, maybe a little less, of feeling, okay, I can scale these. I'm good. And then my anchor hip was shot. And I was like, oh gosh, how the heck am I going to do this? So we literally, when I say limped,
This is in Pennsylvania?
Yes. We limped our way from southern Pennsylvania up to Cleveland and all the way back down to home, passing through with with the hips that were rotated down and separated.
That's when you were passing through Cincinnati the first time. Right, when we had the seminar that we did for the charity seminar.
Yep. And that timing worked out perfectly. That was an amazing event, and spread a lot of awareness. Got some people in the network that want to continue to help out, and it is really, really cool. But when I was saying back in New Jersey, there was a spot that when we were passing through, so as we're walking through, we just left. Mind you, this is new in the walk. Like, really wasn't quite sure what we got ourselves into. And to be fair, we didn't know if we would make it back to Cincinnati. That was still like a prove it to me type of thing.
Oh,
honestly,
when you started in New York.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, I remember looking at my girlfriend like, I don't know what I just signed up to do.
Yeah, you're like,
like,
because it's one of those things. Because now you have within the cancer community, there are eyes on you,
right?
And so you've opened your mouth,
right? Hey, this was cool, but what am I doing?
Yeah, especially when you start looking at that map of the U.S.
Right. It's like, oh, I'm only here. Wow. Yeah, and definitely there were more so those days when I was limping with that aching hip, and but as we were passing through New Jersey, it was our first interaction with people. Because New York, I mean, yeah, everybody's on the street, but honestly, New York, everybody lets you just do your own thing.
Yeah, they don't really. You're doing your thing. Yeah, nobody really cares what you're doing.
And so as we're walking, we start approaching a town, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. And as I'm walking through, I start to get surrounded by a bunch of people. And they keep like looking at each other, giving signals to one another. One's carrying a bat. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? Like, and I could tell like there was a guy they kept communicating with across the street. I'm like, okay, this is weird. So I have to cross the street because I'm going that way. And one guy comes and puts his arm around me. He said, well, where are you going? And I said, California. You're really lost. And he's like, you don't belong here. Well, there's a undercover looking security car that I walk up to at that point because they are still following me. And sure enough, one of the nicest dudes that I ever could have met, I tap on the window. He gets out. He's a SWAT officer for the local area. Is this a bad spot coming through or whatever? And he was like, oh, did you just come from that way? I was like, yeah. He's like, oh, you made it through the bad spot. Congratulations. And I was like, oh, well.
You're alive.
Yeah.
You talked to me before about being in some dangerous neighborhoods. Is that the most dangerous neighborhood you've been in?
No, but I would say it was the most threatened that I felt. One of the times that necessarily was one of the most, like, there's other times where, so I don't know if it's because you become numb to people. There's certain areas like inner city community. So I've had more problems with rural communities than I have city communities. Farmers have ran me off the road, going insane towards me, and my crew chasing them down, taking pictures and videos of them. And there's been people that have in the country that literally have driven through a front yard to try to hit me. That's fun too.
In the country?
Yeah. So there was a guy that ended up chasing me. And so this was also in Pennsylvania. I see a guy come out of out of his house, opens the storm door, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Talking on the phone." And he's like, no. I'm like, yes, I am. I'm talking on the phone, pull out my phone and show it to him. He's like, no, you're not. Jumps in his car. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what the heck's wrong with this guy. Just, keep on trekking. Click, clack, until his car literally, like, he cuts me off, right? Like, to where, if you cut off a pedestrian, they can't pass you. And he's like, I'm calling the cops on you, blah, blah, blah. Like, taking pictures, everything, going ballistic. And so I have a squad car, and at the time, we had 2 vehicles. They parked, I called them to give them a heads up, and they parked in 2 separate spots. He chased both of them down, pictures, license plates, everything. And I'm like, it's weird.
Hold on, back up. Are you on private property here, or are you walking on public road?
I'm on a state route, 100%
so fairly
legal and
a main vein to walk through.
Completely. So I beat him to calling the cops.
Yeah.
I called the cops, and I was like, hey, man, I don't know what's going on. I was like, but can y'all send a trooper here? Blah, blah, blah. They're like, well, you should just keep walking. We'll see if we can find you. I'm like, okay, I don't think you understand. Like, I don't think it's safe for me to keep walking. Or, to keep, like, walking near his area, right?
Mm.
Like, I was like, I need to be I need to get myself to a safe spot. So they were like, well, we can't have a trooper find you. I was like, okay, you're right, but I will be in that vicinity, just not right on his area, right? So they find me, and they were like, yeah, well, there is a couple calls about you guys. And I was like, okay.
What are people calling about, though?
Suspicious activity, quote unquote.
Yeah,
and I was like, okay. And so I asked them, I was like, well, why would they call the cops on us? They said, they're just not used to outsiders. I was like, really? Really? We're parked in a parking lot as well as walking on the perfectly legal, and they were like, yeah, you're not breaking the law. You're not, can I get your name? You're there. And then they went and found my squad people. They got their name and just basically wished us luck, because they were like, what we're doing is awesome. And whatever.
Yeah, because you've had quite a few run-ins with the police where you're constantly getting stopped to ask questions, and you and I've talked about that.
From the Kansas to Oklahoma. Now I know this is like way fast forward, but from the Kansas to Oklahoma area. So through both of those states, I would say my squad car was pulled over about 11 times.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Have you guys ever been ticketed for anything?
Outside of, well, I guess it was more my driver got ticketed for fender bender, and then we got into a 3-car pileup on the highway same day. Outside of that, no.
But that's not walk-related stuff.
No.
Let me take you a step back.
No.
Coming out of New York, when you leave New York, because you're only walking between, say, 10 and 20 miles a day, basically. So you're not covering a ton of ground. Explain to the listeners how this walk operates. You leave Times Square on June 17th, and you're going to walk 20 miles. On that first day, where did that put you? Exactly.
No, so we had to get creative to actually get out of New York. I didn't know until we got there that I put us on an island.
Oh, yeah.
It didn't actually like register in my head. Yeah. I looked for every route possible, and it kept telling me, take a ferry, take a ferry, take a ferry. And I was like, well, how the heck am I supposed to do this? So that first day, we actually walked, I would say 20 miles around the city itself. to cover our ground to start it off. And then we basically use that mileage as like a additive to get over the bridge.
Like a credit to get over the bridge.
To get over
Gotcha.
the bridge and all that, and then get into the beginning of New Jersey. And then we started there. Where we actually were, where we started after New York City, was just south of Newark.
In an industrial area or a high density area, New York City, wherever it may be, the walking, I would imagine the walking is actually safer in an area like that than along the country roads of, say, Oklahoma or Ohio or any place like that.
Yeah, I mean, Ohio has no shoulders. So that was scary because I went from Pennsylvania. One of the highlights of Pennsylvania was that the shoulder was huge. So like I actually felt comfortable walking because I felt like I had the ability to sidestep something if it came.
Just side note on that. Have you done any research on how many pedestrians walking on the road are hit on a yearly basis?
Rich, we are not going to cover that right now. All right.
But have you done the research? We don't have to talk about it. But I just want to know if you.
I watched the Joe Bell film when it came out or whatever, and that was as close as I'm coming to people getting hit.
Well, there's what's the new movie with Mark Wahlberg?
That's it. I think I look at it like cancer, right? You can tell me how many people die of cancer every year. I mean, I'm still gonna. You still got to fight it. You still got to have that positive mindset. And this is very similar, right? Like, people have mentioned like, oh, dude, like these people that tried to cross just got squashed, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. Like it's not me. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, guide my steps, man. Because
you saying your prayers every morning before you start walking,
twice a day, every day.
In the morning before you start, like, watch out for me today, Lord. And
that's it, dude.
When
that's
I go to bed,
it.
like,
that's
okay,
it. Yep. All right. That's another day. Kansas City. We went up with David Allen Arnold to do all the pre-recording for the Monday Night Football game before we all went, right? And so I'm flying around doing like he does the aerial shots in a airplane, and we're chatting it up, with the pilot and him, and it was a great time. Beautiful, beautiful shots, beautiful everything with it.
Didn't he have a cool job?
Oh, dude, it's so cool.
So for listeners, I had David Allen Arnold on my podcast previously, and he is the camera operator in the helicopter for several reality shows, but probably most well known for The World's Deadliest Catch. But he does all the opening shots for Monday Night Football, so he gets to go to every game in essence, but kind of, but from, I don't know, 1,000 feet up. And so he's the guy that starts that opening shot every week on Monday Night Football. And unfortunately, I drove out there to go to the game, take you guys to the game, and then I didn't even get to see him. So he was busy up in the helicopter.
Because he likes me more.
Yeah, you spent time with him. I didn't get to take a flight.
As we're flying around, the pilot, when he landed, he was like, all right, well, Cody, you evaded death another day, because you're not technically supposed to be able to fly, right? Humans aren't anyway. And I'm like, oh gosh, yeah, I say that to myself every night I go to sleep. Like,
this was a walk in the park compared to what I do.
Yeah, I was like, I thought I was safe up there. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I was like, oh, we're just here flying around.
So going back to Jersey, after you got out of all the industrial area, when did it open up? Was there any countryside in Jersey, or was it after you got out of Jersey that started opening up in Pennsylvania into the countryside?
We stayed in the police parking lot. I think that was Princeton, New Jersey.
And that's what I wanted to get to. So for somebody if I was like, yeah, I'm going to walk across the country, what does this look like on a daily basis? You're covering about 10 to 20 miles. So you walk your mileage, and then you just plop down right there and park the car? Or I mean, I'm asking this question rhetorically because I know the answer, but explain to the listeners how it works.
Well, I'd say first thing, if you're planning to walk across the nation, don't make a detour. This extended it way too long. At any rate, but you basically, we probably get up 8-ish every day. We found it kind of, that's the sweet spot. We tried a few days to get up early. And when you sleep in the car, you're up at the sunrise anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But when you get up, we first thing is a gas station stop, generally speaking, especially early in the walk. We didn't have
for coffee or for gas. Yes.
Yes. Early in the walk, we didn't have any like hotel help or anything like that. So as the walk has progressed, other people have come on to like donate stays, give us reduced stay, things like that. But the beginning, it was very much I guess, bare boning it, right? And we would stop, wake up, stop in for everything, breakfast, coffee. We know which gas stations to eat at, which ones not to eat at. Don't ever eat the egg salad. You know, so we're sitting here, we start the day off every time with a gas station. And that's a habit that we still probably haven't broken fully yet. And then I work on mobility a little bit. So usually if it's in the grass, it's in the grass. If it's inside somewhere, I think my team's giving me crap because I've been at the gas station working on mobility, and it's a whole circuit. So that probably takes me about 15 minutes just to open my hips up, keep everything going, stretch out my lower back. And because walking takes a toll on the whole body, especially if you do cover 20 miles a day. So we work on that, and then we go back to our pinned location. So we pin it on maps, and generally speaking, wherever we stop, we don't sleep where we stop because it's usually not safe. So we usually go back to a police parking lot if we're sleeping in the car. We've asked hotels to sleep in their parking lots as well. People are really nice about it too. I mean, haven't been told no yet. So
yeah, you'd have to be a special kind of person. Here's the pitch, right? Like, hey, we're walking across the country. I started in New York several months ago, and we're really worn out. Do you mind if we just sleep and crash in our car in the parking lot? Scram.
No, you're not allowed. Yeah, no.
There's a special place in hell for those people.
Right. And so after we begin. My crew pretty much leaves me on my own for, I'd say, about hour and a half.
Yeah. They just drive ahead, or?
Yeah, as long as they can stop. If they can't stop, they do loops, but we really don't have contact until about an hour and a half.
But you're always you have your phone, so.
Right. And they're pretty much like the forward scouts, right? Like, hey, what's coming up? Is there a dog coming up that we need to be aware of? Get the mace out, ready to go. Whatever. Bear spray.
Well, clearly they weren't doing their job back in Jersey when you went through the dangerous town.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, they had to go in ahead of you and be like, "Yeah, this looks safe."
Yeah. So after I begin, it's pretty much, especially in the summer, it was every hour to 90 minutes stopping and drinking a full shaker of Infinite Nutrition sponsor me. So I have like supplements for my body type. So I was drinking a full shaker of hydration. There was like probably a small dose of like 30 milligrams of caffeine, just a little bit of just, hey, keep going type of stuff. And I was sweating it out too. So that was the electrolytes and everything were so needed. The day was without it versus the days with it were
significantly different.
Oh my gosh.
You could tell.
It's insane.
How many, so after you got walking, how many hours would you walk before you stopped?
We'd walk 6 to 8.
Pretty much all the way till your next meal.
Yeah, pretty much. Are
you intaking calories during that walk at that time?
Liquid. That's it.
Sugars, gel packs, any of that kind of stuff?
Just liquid. So the Infinite Hydration, like they have all like, it's like every time that I drink it, it's like 60 to 80 grams of carbs.
Okay.
And then,
Okay,
and then electrolytes, and then one of my blends has a little bit of protein, very, very minuscule. Just because endurance athletes, I don't know, they got something against protein, I guess. I don't know. So
no, it's endurance. I'm telling you,
it's different, man.
I made that mistake the first time I took a hike on the Appalachian Trail. I did a 5-day hike, and I tried to maintain nutrition like I normally eat. So I'm eating, 30% protein, and I packed protein powder along with everything else. I had these the dehydrated meals, like the Mountain House meals. And I was just adamant on, and then the next time I went on my hike, I'm like, no, because I didn't realize how much sugar that my body, all the glucose that I burned through, and you need to replenish that.
Dude,
so
I'm telling you, I told my whole team, I'm going on a cookie dough diet next time I start.
well, that's what I would ask you. I mean, I know you probably don't track nutrition the way that I do, but if you had to estimate, like, what percentage of your calories when you're walking on these back-to-back days come from carbs?
It's insane. It's probably, I would say, and I've never, ever had a diet like this. So I used to track my calories religiously until I started doing this because it it pretty much came down to just grabbing whatever I can. And that being said, I would say right now, just because I know nutrition, I'm easily at like 70% carbs. Yeah, like it's heavy.
Yeah, I get it, because when I'm hiking, like say when I'm hiking on the AT,
Yeah.
I will typically, like, a meal for me would be like a tortilla wrap.
Yeah.
With honey
Mm-hmm.
and maybe some peanut butter.
Yeah.
And that's some good fat and good sugar and carbohydrates to just fuel.
That's it. And so I do something called trunk kitchen.
Trunk kitchen.
Yeah, and
is this a thing, or did you coin this?
I coined it, and so
I like this.
I started making
this.
food out of my trunk, and just kind of record it, just have some fun with it, right? And it's crazy because I'll just go in, grab an avocado, squeeze it on tortilla, eat it, some garlic salt or something.
Do you have any like hot plate or anything in the trunk?
No,
Nothing.
It's just literally I walk out with like stuff from the market and I just combine it and eat it.
So this isn't a Gordon Ramsay-esque type of kitchen in your trunk.
My stuff tastes good. Okay, all right. I can do a lot with some parsley and garlic salt.
This is true. I eat basic anyway. So okay, so when you're sleeping, you're trunk kitchening it. It's
so we're going with that hydration break of every like hour and a half. So if you were to do this, 90 or 60 to 90 minutes, you're going to break and drink. Right?
How long do you break for?
I would say probably about 15 minutes.
And then you just continue.
And then we continue. Towards before got COVID and came back here and whatever, that looks much different than earlier in the walk, right? I am stronger now, and I am very much more aware of my body and how to do this. So the typical day with that is longer stretches because I'm hydrating and eating just a little bit differently. And we're in the wintertime, so I'm not sweating as much of my nutrients out.
Yeah, but don't you burn more calories when you're cold, like, if you're shivering? Well, I would imagine you're probably not cold because you're moving anyway.
Yeah, and I'm in Texas. I'm not in this miserable city of Cincinnati.
Noted. It's freezing.
It's so cold, man.
Yeah.
That typical rotation, and then I always try to be done between 5 and 6.
Walking.
Yes. So, I try my hardest to get my, hit my goal for the day and then be done so I can eat dinner. Because at that point, I went 6 to 8 hours at that point without consuming any solid food. So then I go eat dinner. And then usually I'm on emails as well as calls and texting a bunch of people trying to solicit for different things, as well as trying to plan out.
That's the other side of this that people don't understand, because you're not just walking for fun. This isn't some sort of hobby.
Right.
Well, I mean, yes, it is fun. I'll use quotation marks there, but you're doing this for charity purposes.
That's it.
And
man.
raising money. And so what people don't understand is that the whole time you're walking, there have been times where you and I have had, say, a business call for an hour and a half while you're in the process of walking.
Right.
And while you're simultaneously, at the end of the day, you have all these emails, people that have helped sponsor you, like the hotel that has given you some rooms.
Yep.
And so you're constantly connecting with people like that to manage the business side of this.
Constantly.
So this is a nonstop thing.
It's literally, if I stop, everything else stops.
Yeah.
And right now is a prime example of, I was horizontal for a week and a half, 2 weeks, right? Well,
so what are these lazy people doing in the car all day then?
That's what I'm saying, man. They got to start doing something. No, I'm just kidding.
They're driving like 4.5 miles an hour. They're probably getting 50 miles a gallon at least.
At least.
Yeah.
No, I couldn't do it without them. They literally, my girlfriend's a nurse, so any type of ailment I've had, it's been taken care of. My buddy, he's very much so route planning, driving ahead, making sure that I stay on my schedule. So that is the other thing, is you get runner's highs or walker's highs or whatever. And at times you just keep going. Right. And I think we've experienced that more so now that I'm stronger. Like, it's like, he'll be like, dude, you need something to eat, man. Stop, and I look down and I've already covered 7.5 miles.
How much weight have you lost since the beginning of the walk?
I have been probably around, so we were cutting weight anyway to make it easier on my joints. And I think since I've started, I've lost another 7 to 10 pounds.
Oh, wow.
So nothing like insane. I think a lot of that has been size versus
Oh yeah, for sure.
know?
It's muscle.
Yeah.
I mean,
And,
because you're not feeding your muscles the protein.
Right.
If you're eating 70% carbohydrates,
Right.
your muscles don't have the fuel to rebuild anyway.
Right.
Or the time for
Right.
that matter.
So that's one thing. I did pick up some general protein so that I can just start doing a shake a day type of thing. Because I've been like I need some of my old regularity to come back. You know what I'm saying? I've been doing this since June, and it's it's like, okay, do some push-ups now. Dang it!
But you also maintain somewhat of a workout routine on the road as well.
We try.
Yeah.
We do the best that we can.
That's gotta be, man, that's gotta be mentally grueling. Like you've just spent 10, 12 hours of a day walking, and then you come back in and you're like,
well, especially when some of our networking has been done with gyms and trainers. It's like they want me to work out with them, and it's like, all right, sure, I'll do whatever you guys are doing today. And it's like, oh gosh, you guys are doing Bulgarian split squats. I haven't done these since I was with Rich. I gave these up for a year.
Yeah, well, on top of it, I mean, you're just hammering at your legs every day. So
Yeah.
when you're done walking at the end of the day, so you basically started your day with the ever so nutritious gas station food in the morning. I'm sure that probably is like some sort of Cinnabon type of thing.
It's delicious, man.
It's terrible.
Nutritious.
Terrible. And your coffee. And then you get going, you walk 6 to 8 hours, then you have a lunch break in essence.
Liquid hydration.
That's it.
That's it.
You're not eating a solid meal at all so you don't get another solid meal until the end of the day.
Till dinner. That's why I make sure that I stop.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if I do this right or wrong. But
I'm telling you now you're doing it wrong.
But I'm telling you that it's worked, and it's and I haven't needed anything else because of the amount of carbohydrates in my shakes.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm telling you, I'm religious with it. So by
but I'm just
the
surprised.
time dinner comes around, I'm at like 240 grams of carbs.
I'm just surprised you haven't lost more weight.
Well, I eat a lot. I'm eating like I'm probably eating like that gas station run in the morning. You can chalk me up for like 1,200 calories. The dinner, you can chalk me up for. I mean, they see what I'm eating, and it's literally like I'm throwing. I know from training the body forever. Sauce. Yeah, I usually say no to sauces. Dude, I'm sitting there emptying ranch packets and all kinds.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to get as many little boosts in that calorie that I can.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I'd say dinners, I'm probably at another 12 to 1,500. Like I just force food down into myself.
Yeah.
So, and then walking, I'm at 1,000 to 1,200 calories with all the shakes.
Okay. Yeah,
so I mean, as far as a calorie number, I have plenty of caloric intake.
Yeah, I'm sure probably there's some nutrient density there lacking a little bit. Probably.
A little bit.
But I mean, look, you got to do what you got to do. You're traveling and you're, what'd you call it, trunk kitchen?
Trunk kitchen it. Yeah. No, I mean, it's definitely.
I'll just say this, in the trunk kitchen, the fact that you have avocado in there, that's a premium ingredient.
It is premium. Yeah. I'm telling you, Kroger has hooked me up.
It's
not my budget.
Nice. Well, that's the other thing. So on this, what the listeners may not know is that you're funding this whole thing.
Yeah.
I helped you out a little bit, but
we've done the best that we could to alleviate the nonprofit's budget for this. It's certain times have gotten very tight, and other times we've because we've also, in theory, we've donated probably, so we've helped with bills for a couple families to help them finish their battle. We've helped with groceries and date nights for I would say maybe, I think I'm going to go drop off this week, probably our 9th and 10th family for that stuff, for covering some groceries as well as date nights so the parents can decompress from the battle and just be together.
Let me pause you there for a second, because you and I had talked about this before, and you kind of just like glanced over this with a statement, but you talked about your parents getting a divorce and filing bankruptcy, because you and I had an in-depth discussion about this. And the reason why you're raising this money, this isn't for cancer research or anything along those lines. This is more about the fact that when the families that go through cancer, how stressful this is. Because I remember you distinctly telling me, you had to go do your chemo. And when you're sitting there doing chemo, somebody has to be there with you. Well, if your mom or dad can't go to work, then they're not making money. And if they're not making money, then they're not paying bills. And if they're not paying bills, and then on the same side of that, it's like the stress of your child going through all that. And so there's all this stuff. And so having the money to be able to afford a date night so that parents can go out to eat, or you've talked about the Battle Buddy program where you actually have people that can show up while somebody is going through chemo to sit with them and hang out, talk, play games, whatever it's going to be.
And that program also, like, we've talked with so many hospitals across the nation now, and there's nobody for these kids, man. It's so sad. In Dallas, I connected with a Ewing sarcoma group, actually. And it was a whole group of people that fought my cancer. It was awesome. It was really, really special.
So when you're spending time in the hospitals, because on top of walking all day long, on top of managing the business while you're walking, on top of trying to finish so that you have the several hours in the evening to do the things that you need to be doing to push this charity forward, when you're spending time with kids in hospitals and visiting hospitals, because you've done several mini walks along the way as well.
Yeah, sure. Here and there.
It's quite a bit considering that you've already undertaken this entire thing. But I'll call them 0 days. Are you taking 0 days when you go do that stuff? Or are these things that you squeeze in on the back end of a day? Like, do you have days where you're not walking at all because you're spending time in the hospitals with kids? Or
those are very small or few and far between. Majority of my days I make progress. Yeah, they're long days, and I think adjusting to those long days has been hard for everybody, including anybody that's out there on the road with me, right? It's not easy to get up at 8 a.m. and then know, well, you actually have 12 to 14 hours of work every day.
Yeah.
You know?
No. You have like 12 hours of walking every day, and then you have another 4 hours of work every day.
Yeah. And that was a really rude awakening, honestly, because everything with this pre-work, like, yeah, I've trained with you, my dad, stuff like that to get ready for this, but everything else was like on me regularly, right? And I was training like 4 hours of walking a day, so I was in somewhat decent shape. I mainly trained pace, but the interesting thing with it is I had time to do everything. So now when we fast forward to today, it's like, oh gosh, yeah, we had to speed that walk up. We covered 12 miles because we have an engagement that we have to get to, and then we're going to go back out and try to hit 4 before the night ends.
Well, plus you're also backtracking, sometimes like backtracking, doing new spots because you like Pittsburgh showed you a bunch of love.
Right.
Obviously Cincinnati showed you a bunch of love. There's been quite a bit of media stuff that's gone along with this, particularly local media along the way because you're passing through the town.
Right.
And then people are catching on and as you pass through more towns, is more and more local media, and this starts to stack up. So it's just this entire scaffolding effect that's going on with this.
Yeah, and the planning of it is it's like almost like I needed to hire an event planner.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you and I talked about this before the walk because I told you, I said, once you start walking, there's the entire business side of this thing, and that's not going to be easy.
Yeah, and it hasn't been. I can't act like Superman, but it hasn't been, and I've known that I have to do what I can, the best that I can, but I have to cut some things, right? Like before, if I didn't hit a mileage goal for the day, I would feel really, really miserable. Like I would
failed.
Like I failed. Yeah. And now it's like, okay, I only hit 12 miles. Yeah, we 8 miles shy of what I wanted to hit, but we went and spent 4 hours with a bunch of people that are fighting cancer. Like we did what we were doing this for.
Yeah, exactly.
This is much less about me reaching the pier and more about, hey, can we start a network? Can we start a movement? And that's really what we've been able to do.
It's so interesting that you note that, because I never thought about that when we were talking about this project from the beginning, is because you think I'm me, I'm very left brain mathematically minded, right? So I would have set up my schedule. I'd have been like this many miles a day, and just like an athlete, there is no missing the mileage.
Right.
But then you end up losing sight of what it's really all about to begin with, and that's the impact that you're having on people.
Well, yeah, and these reporters, they were very much so surprised when Daphne, my publicist, when she would sit there and get in touch with them, and just to know that we were willing to like stop and like talk in their town instead of them like driving an hour and a half to try to catch me on the road, they were shocked, because a lot of the athletes do have that mindset, like, okay, I got to hit this amount of miles. I'm doing this for maybe you're trying to set a record or maybe you're trying to do this or that. So the news media has to keep up with you versus we're on an impact schedule trying to just touch as many people as possible. So we, really connecting with these cities and connecting with people. It's been special because we have people, in the beginning we didn't, we've learned so much since, the beginning of this. And we have people probably I would say if we've been in 15 cities, I'd say 10 cities at least. We are with networks that are willing to help us give back, which is really, really sweet.
So along these lines, then, let me ask you this. When we first set the schedule out, we started talking about, we're going to start mid-June. Mm-hmm. And we think that originally, you remember what the original end date was that we wanted to try to hit?
It was like October or September.
No. We talked about that, but when we said no, if we can make it by Christmas.
Oh yeah, by Christmas.
By Christmas. Yep. And now you're basically in Texas,
right?
Which is, how many miles have you done total?
We're at like 2,400.
And when you mapped it out, how many was the total mileage?
For the original route,
yeah,
it was just shy of 3,000.
And you're already at 2,400, and you're just in Austin.
And I'm just in Texas. Yeah.
How many extra miles did you walk?
By the end of this, we would have probably walked about anywhere from 500 to 700 extra miles. I really don't pay attention. I let other people calculate that.
You just left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot.
When my team approached me with the idea of, hey, well, there's all these influencers down in Austin, and there's, various people. I mean, the population in Texas cities are insane, right? So, like, we have the ability to impact, Dallas, Austin, which those two alone are like all the Midwest, right? Like, you're at like 2-point-something million people.
Yeah, because when you hit Kansas City, you started heading south rather than continuing to go west. And when you go west of Kansas City, what cities, I'll say major cities, but because they're not as major as Dallas and Austin, but what are the biggest cities that you would have hit outside of Kansas City?
So I did hit Topeka and Wichita in Kansas.
Yeah.
But outside of that, Wichita wasn't on my agenda. So after Topeka, I was supposed to go to Denver. But the snow passes started to shut down because of the winter.
Now that you've kind of revamped the way your brain works about this, what do you think an end date would be for you now?
April.
I'm
on a mission again.
You're on a mission.
So I'm on the let's continue to make an impact. But when you map it out, I'm pretty much hitting America's dead spots, right? Where there's still population, but there's like population to where like the real engagement or the time consuming engagement has happened in larger cities. Well, there's like 4 larger cities left. You know what I'm saying? So
in between those cities, now you're on let's cover ground.
Right.
That mentality.
Exactly. And before I actually broke to come back here for the holidays, and which ended up being a much more extended leave than really what I wanted, we were hitting 22 a day in between things. So
now on a 7-day week, do you have any 0 days at all, or is it 22 back to back to back to back?
It's pretty much, I would say 22 back to back. And then the next day is more like hit like 12 to 15 and then feel good about that.
So you would do 22 back to back, 2 days, 12 the next day, then 22 back to back, 12 kind of.
I set mentally the 2 on 1 off, but it's become a 2 on 1 half on,
I gotcha.
Just to continue to make some progress. So yeah, I'm thinking April. We'll wrap this up in April.
And then do you have any major, events or anything on that side of things, or do these things just pick up as you go through?
Well, that's the crazy thing, man, is like I said, I kind of need an event coordinator or whatever, right? Like,
I mean, do you have people in like, say like a Topeka before you get there already reaching out to you saying, hey, we would love for you to stop at the hospital? Or
no. So it is literally social media. Like the behind the scenes work is insane. So as we approach like these cities a couple of days out, we're like blasting everybody, including like local, like mom and pops, like dessert places and coffee shops and whatever, just to see if they want to have us, whatever, in for some coffee or, donate a meal. And then we give them a shout out, whatever. But that belly to belly, in essence, networking is crazy to look at the webs. Because from Dallas, we have people now down in Austin. We have people now in Phoenix. We have people in, that they know that live out in Vegas. So, and from Kansas City, they knew people in Dallas and in Austin and and in Wichita. And then
Are you going through Vegas?
I am.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Oh, yeah. Just keep me posted. Well, you're going to keep me posted because we talk all the time anyway.
I'm going to keep you posted.
I know a few
That's
people in
right.
Vegas. I know a few people in Vegas.
Yeah. So no, it's all organic marketing or networking.
But it happens in live time. Like
Yep.
it's rare ahead of time. Because I remember the story. Tell the story about the pizza place back in, was that in?
Yeah, that was Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. That's what I thought.
There's been a couple others that also.
Because you were jamming on Pennsylvania
in.
quite a bit. And you got to, like, there's some good people there, man.
There are some
They
good
took
people.
care of you.
They did, especially Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh and the surrounding areas. And
That's coming from a
general
Cincinnati
region.
boy,
That's
too.
coming from Cincinnati boy, yeah.
Pittsburgh was good to you.
Dude, Pittsburgh was great. I mean, the police chief drove
So
probably...
you left there wearing black and gold.
Well, I wear blue and white, so I don't even wear orange and black. So,
Okay. Whoa.
yeah,
So
yeah. Joe Shiesty, what do y'all call him? Shiesty? Joe Burr? I don't know.
Don't
Whatever.
even.
Y'all got too many nicknames for that guy.
Come on, man. This has been a good
Stick with
season
one,
for us.
Stick with one. No, I'm happy for the city of Cincinnati. I really am, but it doesn't.
You're sounding like an outsider right now. Let's go back to the pizza place.
I'm talking about what's going on in this specific spot. The owner overhears me, and actually another table, and that was the crazy.
So you guys
part.
were in there. This is where you decided to stop and eat.
Yeah. So pizza,
And you're just having a conversation.
yeah, just a conversation with actually the server, and then a table and the owner overhears it. So the people that overhear it that were eating there put $40 on our table as they're passing out as they're walking out, because they're like, hey, what you're doing is amazing, blah, 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 blah. Well, the owner, come to find out, donated every single thing that we ate. And we ordered a chunk of food. There was 4 of us at that point. It was like...
Well, at that point, did you get any to-go food?
No, I left the server the $40 because I was like, I was like, this is not for me. This is for you. And I just thanked her and, went about my day. But it was humbling as all get out.
So hold on, another family left you $40 and then you turn around and gave it to the server?
Yeah, because that's it was for me to eat, but they donated my meal, so I was like, well, it's for you to eat now.
That's really cool. Speaks volumes. I'd like to make fun of you, but I can't.
Well, it's easier to make fun of people that look like you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a softball pitch right there.
Yeah,
You're just gonna hit that one out of the park.
You got all kinds of issues.
Yeah, no, we don't need to get into that.
Oh,
so the owners of the restaurant took care of your meal and everything just because you guys were walking through, and
that's it.
Yeah,
they heard that I was a survivor, and come to find out, I guess icing on the cake after I told the server that the server herself had a nephew fighting cancer.
Oh, wow.
Yes. It was a weird web, man. Almost like, God made me walk through that specific time, right?
That's the thing. It's funny how these things come full circle. So let me tell the Kansas City story, how I ended up out there. So I was up in New York visiting a friend of mine and, hanging out with a couple friends, and one of my buddies had 6 tickets to go to the Kansas City New York Giants game on Monday night. And it's typically a guy's trip that his family does. And they were taking his sister, and it ended up that they were taking his sister because she is battling cancer. And this is kind of like one of those last, like, hey, let's all spend this time together. And then it ended up that she got sick and she couldn't go. So everybody decided they wanted to stay home and be with her. And so my friend was like, hey, look, these tickets are going to go to waste. Can you use these things? And I'm like, actually, this is weird how this comes full circle because she's battling cancer. She can't go. I have a friend who's walking across the country who happens to just be right outside of Kansas City at that point in time. And I called you up. I said, hey, Cody, you want to go to this game? And you're like, yeah. So me and my brother drove 9.5 hours out there. we watched the game, hung out that night, had a good dinner at the barbecue place, and then we drove 9.5 hours back the next morning just so those tickets wouldn't go to waste. And it's just, just kind of interesting how that stuff comes full circle, because when you're walking on a daily basis on the road, I would imagine some R&R like that is, for especially like you and your road crew, is just very, very such a blessing.
Yeah. And it's, situations like that. Actually, I'm wearing I'm not an Oklahoma City Thunder hat because they ended up donating back 2 nights of tickets actually for my whole crew. And we had almost basically as close as we could. Well, I mean, they were great seats. They were like close to probably like 5 rows up or something from like when you start getting like on court and stuff. And
well, those are the best seats anyway, because you're elevated
you can
enough to see
a little
the game,
bit, right. But it was against 2 big teams. We saw the Nets with Durant and Irving and whatever. Harden, which Oklahoma City hates Durant. So, but those tickets would have been expensive had we bought them by ourselves. And then we also saw Miami Heat, which have a bunch of names as well. I mean, I think they're the best team. I don't follow basketball, but I know enough of the players and the game itself that I enjoy going. And those 2 days, man, just being able to veg out at the stadium, they gave us gear and just like treated us right. We actually were able to go on the court after the game and stuff and get pictures and stuff.
Did you meet the players?
Not meet the players. We got to take a picture with a big bison.
Ungrateful.
I'm telling you, man, they didn't want to talk with a cancer guy.
You can't
cancer card only gets you so far.
Yeah, exactly.
Got
gets you free
tickets,
pizza and tickets.
Yeah,
but
free
by
pizza
God.
and tickets. Anything else, it's not working.
Man.
But yeah, man, there's been so many small businesses that have helped us. Just giving us, like, before we left the Dallas region, we ate at a barbecue joint. Bro, they donated like $75 worth of meat just so he and I, like my buddy and I, just pigged out.
Did you say thanks but no thanks? I'm on a high carb diet.
No, I said, give me. You sure you don't want to donate $100? Because, like, not to sound ungrateful here or anything. I'll take any more meat you got.
Well, all right. Since we're talking about donations, where can people go if they wanted to make a donation to this cause? And what will the money be used for?
championsdoovercome.org. And the money right now would be used for date nights for families that, as I find out that they have cancer, it's so important to keep that nuclear family strong. And a part of that is trying to fight that divorce ratio, right? Traumatic illnesses, unfortunately, rip people apart for whatever reason. And so we've been trying to spread those date nights out as we go across the nation, as well as combining those with grocery packages. So we usually will give anywhere from $100 to $200 worth of groceries. And then as we've connected with hospitals, there's a family, for instance, we just got word that they couldn't get to the hospital because they were driving 3 hours one way, 3 hours back just for treatment. So we bundled up $500 worth of gas cards to give to that family. So that should cover them for a chunk of time. But outside of the date nights and the groceries, we're looking in the process right now of looking for the next family that we're going to help and fully. And that will be paying all of their cost of living bills, as well as the Battle Buddy initiative, and really trying to make sure that they have a support figure in their life.
championsdoovercome.org.
That's it.
Awesome,
That's it, man.
April. I'm going to hold you to that.
Oh, yeah, I'll be done.
Is that April 31? Are you giving yourself to the end of the month?
Well, if you're holding me to it, you best believe I'm going to give myself every last second I got.
Awesome. Well, listen, Cody, man, take care of that COVID. How many more days do you think it's going to be until you get back on the road?
The goal is next Tuesday. The goal is a week from today. I'm ready to go. I mean, physically, I keep giving myself, cognitively, I'm like, okay, no, stop. But I'm inside myself ready to just get back to it. So
we'll be safe out there, man. And I'm holding you to April.
I better see you at the pier.
Oh, you know what? You will.
Holding a sign saying, I love you.
I missed you, Cody. I doubt that.
All right, brother. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you, man. Good chat.
Quite Franklin is providing this podcast as a public service, but it is neither a legal interpretation nor legal advice, nor a statement of Quite Franklin policy. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation of that product or entity by Rich Franklin or Quite Franklin. The views expressed by guests on the podcast are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. Views and opinions expressed by Quite Franklin employees or representatives are the views and opinions of the persons expressing them, and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of Quite Franklin or any of its officials or principals. Nothing heard on this podcast at any time is medical advice or is intended as medical advice. The listener must always consult his or her personal physician or other qualified medical professional regarding any questions of a medical nature. If you have any questions about this disclaimer, please contact our general counsel.